I name this ship Clyde. May God bless her and all who sail in her.
The first HMS Clyde was launched in 1796 from Chatham Dockyard. She was a 38-gun Apollo-class frigate, and unique to the time, her along with 7 sister ships were built from soft timbers as opposed to the hard timbers that had previously been used for ships of the class. The ramifications of that were that the ship herself only had a very short life. She was launched in 1796 and actually paid off in 1805, so only had a 9-year span of life. She had quite a turbulent career. She was based primarily in the Baltic and in the Channel areas, and of note, in May 1797, she undertook her first refit in Nore in the Thames estuary. At the time of the refit, the Northern Fleet mutinied, and Captain Charles Cunningham convinced his crew not to mutiny, and he sailed Clyde along with a fellow sister ship and broke through the barricade. There can be little doubt that that act led to the mutiny itself at Nore being thwarted. So I'd like to think that the first Clyde had a short life, but had a very distinguished one. And the most recent HMS Clyde was a Thames-class submarine, which saw gallant service during the Second World War.
I joined her in 1940 as navigator. I was navigator for 9 months before I was promoted to first lieutenant, and I stayed in her until 1942. I was almost exactly 2 years in Clyde. Clyde was a very large submarine. In fact, she was the largest submarine in the world, 345 feet long. Generally speaking, it was fairly comfortable. During the Second World War, at least, everyone was a volunteer, officers and men. It made you united together. Everyone had a very important job to do, and we depended on each other. Ships were being torpedoed every day almost, and if we heard a SOS being sent, we would surface immediately and dash off at our top speed, which was 22 knots, and hope, A, to find a U-boat fooling around, or perhaps lend some assistance. Clyde, while she was in the Norwegian, did manage to torpedo one torpedo into the German battleship Gneisenau. It didn't sink her, it put her out of action for about 7 months. So we did quite a bit of reconnaissance work. We did a lot of patrols off Toulon. We landed several people, including Captain Churchill, who eventually married Odette. But then while we were on patrol, we were suddenly recalled to Gibraltar to investigate the possibility of carrying aviation spirit, ammunition and food to Malta when that island was besieged and convoys were unable to get through, and they were really in a desperate position. And we eventually managed to do that, and it probably enabled us to survive in the Mediterranean.
And so the Battle of the Convoys begins to burn itself out. The British Isles and Malta both live on the precious cargoes of these ships.
Since then, the people of Malta have been very grateful to the submarine service. They've erected a memorial and they've issued a replica of the George Cross that they were awarded to the submarine service. So yes, they were terribly grateful.
We're very proud of the fact in Portsmouth that Portsmouth is probably the oldest naval base in the country and the oldest dockyard. We can trace our heritage back to 1194 when King Richard the Lionheart granted Portsmouth its first royal charter. The Great Victorian Extension of 1864 was one of the largest government contracts ever awarded. It still is in actual fact. They had to dig down 75 feet and all the soil had to be removed. In removing that, the Victorians used less men in a quicker time than was used to dig the English side of the Channel Tunnel. They also removed 3 times as much material. So it just shows you what a vast project this was at that time. It was there that we built one of the first armoured battleships, the battleship Inflex, which in actual fact still holds the record for the thickest armour ever put into a battleship, 24 inches. She was the first ship to be launched by electricity, the first to be lit by electricity, and from then on Portsmouth built the largest battleships of each class, going right the way up to 1915. So you see, the centre of shipbuilding has always been here. HMS Andromeda was the last in a line of post-war frigates and completed in record time. My job as a shipwright liner was mainly for the production of working drawings for the ship's ventilation system. In fact, it was one of the most successful build jobs Portsmouth had ever done. Well, it was a lovely sunny day, and thousands of people flocked into the dockyard, and the Royal Marine Band was there, and after the hymns, that famous old saying, God bless her and all who sail on her, and the bottle smashed and away she went. A great cheer and everything was fantastic. That was on the 25th of September 1967. We fully expected another ship to follow it, but after about a year, when the government announced that the Royal Dockyards would no longer build warships, it claims a shattering blow to Portsmouth, because a long tradition stretching back over 800 years was now going to be broken. So it was a great tragedy.